Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. We have Adam Englander with us today presenting AI-assisted development. He is going to be going over using AI in your development workflows and how it can assist you and generally try and make you a better developer. First and foremost, I'd like to give some thanks to Corporate Co-working for giving us the opportunity to present in this space, and I will now turn it over to you and let you take it on.
Thanks. All right, let me try this. All right, hey everybody.
Hey.
I'll try and speak loud enough because I know the air conditioner's on, it's noisy, and I don't want to turn it off. We did that last time and it got a little warm. So my name's Adam Englander. Been doing software development here in Las Vegas for, gosh, 20 years now. I haven't even thought about that, it's 20 years. And something that I've been doing in the last year is a lot of AI-assisted development. So I work for a company that is, we're an AI company. We were an AI company trying to find a product. We found a product. And one of the things that we're doing is we're using everything in our power to, as a startup, right, to enhance our runway. And beyond that, to be able to build more faster with fewer developers, because if you've ever tried to hire good developers, it's a long process, right? You'll find somebody you think is good, they don't actually work out, or they work out great and then they leave. So we're trying to do as much as we can with as little human as possible. And AI-assisted development is one way we do that. We do, like we actually just hired an AI a person who's just basically going to help everyone else in the company find some ways to improve what they do with AI, right? Everybody has boring, terrible tasks that they don't want to do anymore. There are a lot of AI systems out there that allow you to just get that done. So what we're really going to talk about, right, is a lot of how I do AI development, and it works with a lot of languages. My experience is Python and JavaScript because we're a Python shop and everybody has to do JavaScript if you do front ends. You don't have a choice. I mean, you've got a choice, but they're not great. Why it matters, right? And then when we start, like, is anyone using AI tools already? Like, is anyone using chatbots to help them do stuff? Cool, about half. Is anybody using code assistants like Cursor, Gemini? Okay, a few. So we'll talk about that a little bit. I'm assuming most people are interested because I see a lot of new faces. So one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that AI has been around for a long time in development, right? And not how we think of AI today, right? Because if you ask people about AI, if you ask industry groups, Gartner, whatever, right? AI includes machine learning, right? And so machine learning models have been in your IDEs for a long time, right? So like Eclipse in 2012 had a model in it that helped you do autocomplete, right? So, and if you were unfortunate enough as I was to use Eclipse back in 2012, you got some of that. And like through the years, different things have been added, like IntelliCode for Visual Studio, right? I don't know what Tab 9 is, but it's a thing. And different pieces got added at different times, right? So GitHub Copilot, and then AlphaCode, DeepMind, I've never used any of that. I never used Code Whisperer for Amazon. So a bunch of stuff I never used. The JetBrains AI, I don't really use that either. I hear it's getting better. One of my coworkers said it got way better, he tried it again. And then Copilot Enterprise and then Cursor. So I really started using AI dev tools when Cursor came out, after Cursor came out, because it was the only one that actually worked for me. Doesn't mean it won't work for you, it didn't work for me until then. There are currently really 3 general modalities, right, for AI-assisted code. So there's kind of like prompt to code, which is like an AI assistant. So you go into ChatGPT or into your IDE and like, hey, I want to do this, how do I do it, right? AI agents and then vibe coding. And we'll talk about all 3. I was getting ahead of my slides again. I'm terrible about that. So AI assistant, right, is that how do I refactor this code? It will just tell you. This is what a lot of your IDEs will call, like, there's agent mode versus non-agent mode. This is non-agent mode, and it just annoys me. Like, don't tell me, just do it. Right? Here's how I could restructure your code. Cool, do it. Like, don't tell me about it. Make me copy and paste it. Just do it. But I imagine a lot of that was because people were uneasy in having it change code, as I was a lot early on. But it'll do that stuff for you, right? You'll give it your code, and it'll just spit it out. Whether you're doing it in ChatGPT or if you're doing it in, oh God, I forgot the name of it. The Anthropic for Claude, right? If you're doing it in Claude or Gemini or Copilot, they'll all do that kind of stuff for you. There's prompt to code, which is basically the same thing, except it just gives you the code, accept it or reject it for doing pieces. This is something I do at the end of every time it writes code for me, is make it so I can read it, and it needs to look like Python again. And then there's prompt to app, which is super popular, like vibe coding. I tend to do a mixture, right? And vibe coding is basically like, I need an application to do X. Here's the things I need you to build. Go build me this application. Or build a plan and then build the application. Most of them will want to build the plan saying, here's what I think I should do. And it puts it all in a README, and then it goes and follows the instructions on the README. I do a lot of that. And we'll talk about it a little bit more when I get into like software development lifecycle. If anybody has any questions when this stuff comes around, I do not mind being interrupted. This is only the second time I've given this talk, so it's probably missing pieces. So don't be shy to just like pop up a hand and ask for something that I either didn't explain well enough or missing something you had a question about. So AI across the software development lifecycle. So I use AI through almost the entire software development lifecycle. The things that I don't, I'm trying to figure out how to. Because as a software developer, you only spend maybe a third of your time writing code. You spend a lot of your time testing code, designing code, triaging bugs, figuring out why something broke in CI/CD, or just kind of general maintenance. Or looking at, right, something's wrong, looking in logs, right, observability. If you're manually doing observability, you're having a bad day through most applications. So I'm going to go through each one of the kind of life cycles, right? Research is where I use AI a ton. So I pay for services, or my company pays for services, so that I can do what's called deep research, right? If you ask most kind of chat-based AIs a question, they'll come up with a decent answer. They spend 15, 20 seconds maybe looking up something on the internet and then coming back with a response, where deep research will spend 10 minutes trying to, or however long it takes, right? They're getting faster. When I was originally using Manus for some of this stuff, it would take an hour and a half. As it's just like, oh, here's a new thing, I need to figure this out, and it just creates more things for it to do as it's really doing research, right? So AI does what I do in software development. Oh, I need to do this thing. I've never done this thing before. Somebody else has done this thing. Go find out who's done it and how they would do it, right? Or if nobody's doing this thing, find something analogous for me to find a way to start, right? Because if you're building new things, right, you have to figure out, at least the way I do it, right, is I don't go like, I'm going to design this all by myself, right? It's like, okay, who's doing something like this? And who's wrote a blog article or whatever on like, oh, I want to do this thing, and here's how I did it. There's probably, as you know, people who, there are very few people who read blog articles. Sometimes I think there's more people writing them than reading them. So like there's a lot of information about how people accomplish tasks. So if I'm trying to accomplish something, I'll do research and I'll ship it off and say, hey, I want to do this, figure out the best way to do this, and then come back and ask me questions about things you're not sure about. And so these conversations usually go on for about half an hour to an hour, and it's done what I would have done, right, which is like, oh, search for articles about this, find this thing on this blog that I can't access. Go look in Stack Overflow, look at some Reddit stuff, right? That's like the research I do when I'm going to go build something. And it takes me hours, and it takes AI minutes. And I tell it the information that I want, and how you work, right? A big part of this is like learning the tools, right? I'm sure all of us learned how to do Google search really well to find the things that we want to find very quickly. It's the same thing with AI. You've got to figure out how to ask it the questions so it gets you what you need. But that's what I do. I'll identify designs or patterns, right? So it's like, okay, now I know what I'm going to build. What's the best way to build this, right? Is it something where I might need an event bus? Is it something where I need some sort of like, there are a lot of different ways to build applications and a lot of different patterns that you can use, right? And if it's something complex, I might ask the AI, like, how are people solving this problem? How are they doing it, right? Are they doing it with multiple services, monoliths, right? Are they using queuing? Like, what are they doing? Are they doing it synchronous, asynchronous? And then identifying libraries and services. I want to do this. What's a library that will do most of this work for me so I don't have to write it all? Having the AI do those, what I did a lot in the past, right, it's like, oh, this is how I would solve for this. I'll do some cursory research, but sometimes it's really hard to find because you're not necessarily using the right words when you do a Google search. And finding a pattern, a lot of times I couldn't really find a pattern. So I would just use ones that I know and kind of come up with the best guess. And then libraries, it's like, oh, well, I know these libraries. They'll do what I need to do. It doesn't mean it's the best pattern or the best libraries. I've discovered interesting new patterns, like literally just last week. I do a lot of asynchronous stuff. So when you're doing some asynchronous calls to a bunch of endpoints, basically the same endpoint for the same thing, right? Like I need to go OCR these 10 images. I have 100 images that I need to OCR, but I only want to do 10 at a time. There's like 3 different ways to do it in Python. And then the AI just had it doing it in a way I've never seen before. It was so much simpler than everything else. It's using semaphores, which I never thought you would just normally do in async IO programming in Python. But it's a really elegant, really simple way to do it. And I was like, what is a semaphore? Because I'm like, you're doing the code wrong. And I was like, no, it's doing the code right. I just didn't know this existed. Like I've been doing Python development for 10 years. I've been doing async Python development for 8 years. And I didn't know that existed. Like I helped maintain an async web library, like a web framework. And I didn't know that existed. So sometimes the AI does something stupid. Sometimes the AI does something really smart and finds something that I didn't know was there. And I'd never even seen anybody use it. It was just really crazy. I don't know where it got the examples from, but it was like, oh yes, you should use semaphores. And it was really nice and elegant and easy to debug, and it's crazy. So planning, I will use AI to figure out what I want to do, break it down into components, determine the implementation order, what needs to get built first, and then have it help me identify success criteria. I'm usually pretty good at success criteria, but every now and then it'll come up with something that I didn't think about. Plus, I don't have to type it all out and all that. Like, I am a terrible typer. I'm actually pretty decent, but lots of spelling errors and typos. Like, if it weren't for autocomplete, I couldn't have a job. So this actually helps me a lot with that. Design. So I am a terrible designer. I know what's good. I just can't go from nothing to good. I think a lot of us, like, we look at a UI and we're like, that's good or that's terrible. But if you were like, I need to come up with a UI to do this type of thing, we'd be like, let's go hire a UX person. There are times when I do hire a UX person. If I've got something big that I want to figure out, like a large refactor of our front end we did a year ago, and we hired a UX person. We're getting to that point again to where it's difficult to solve. They have difficult problems to solve. But for the most part, right now I'm just using AI to design UX flows. And then, again, letting deep research do the research to find strategies. Like, here's the thing that I've got. I need to find an elegant way that people can understand. Here's the type of person that's going to use it. Here's how what their competency level with computers and front ends. Like they need to be able to use this application and do the deep research on the strategy to solve it. And then I have it make me screen mocks. So it'll actually give me images of here's the mock-ups for what it should be for the flow, which is just amazing that it can do that, because it's been such a help for me, because we don't have a UX person on staff. We wouldn't be able to keep a UX person busy, 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year. We probably have, we don't change our UI a lot, so we'd probably have maybe 4 or 5 weeks a year that we could use someone. Difficult to find a good UX person, and every time I seem to need one, they're always busy, the good ones I like. So this has been a big help. And then again, coming up with the screen mocks is fantastic, because the next thing I'm going to do is on the implementation, right? Again, rules and acceptance criteria. It's already come up with that. And then it'll take those images, and you can give it to a model, and it will create a wireframe for JavaScript. I use React, so it creates me a React wireframe of that, and it creates static flows for the wireframes. I have it build integration tests for verifying completeness. It'll write the backend logic, fill it in, and write the unit tests. And I tend to, at the very end, we all had a lot of discussions in this room about how messy AI code can get. I just let it get messy, right? Just solve the problem. And then I have it write the unit test to make sure that it works. And then I tell it to refactor it so that it doesn't look terrible. That's like the last thing I do. Refactor this so that it's readable. One thing you'll get in AI is you'll get way too much documentation, right? It's like, it needs to be self-documenting. Only put in comments where there's either, like on every class, put one in, a very small comment. And then on every public function, put in the minimal necessary, but the functions, you should be able to understand what it's doing by the functions. And what I usually end up with, on the Python side, it turns out very Pythonic. I end up with functions that have 10 to 15 lines in them. They're very well named. The variables are very well named. The unit tests, you have to watch it. For people who don't have dynamic languages, so PHP isn't as difficult, but on JavaScript or Python, it'll try and access like private attributes, like to make the unit test and dive inside of it. So you have to be like, you have to tell it not to do that. But then at the end, right? So and then it's a refactor for the design patterns, right? It's like, oh, I want this to make sure you have proper separation of concern. If you're using something like MVVM, right? You split the stuff, have it split things up so it's proper MVVM or whatever particular design pattern you're using. And then readability and cleanliness, right? But that's how it on the implementation side. So testing. So there's a bunch of different things for testing, and a lot of them exist. So there are tools for exploratory testing. I haven't personally used them. That's near the bottom of my list, right? And so one of the things that you hire QA people for, like a full-time QA person who is a dedicated QA person, is because they spend a lot of time just going through your app trying to break it, right? Because there's, if you're not doing that, you should have somebody doing it, because if you don't, your customers will break it. Because when you're writing automated testing, or engineers for the most part, when you're testing stuff, you're like, look, it works, right? You're not trying to find, look, it's broken, right? You're just trying to find, look, it works. And so they have AI tools that will just basically like, oh, what happens if I put, like stuff that Jay would do. What happens if I put 50 characters in this thing, right? Does it give me a 500 error because it's too big? Does it fail validation like it's supposed to? Does it give a message that makes sense? So there's exploratory testing you need to do. There's also exploratory testing for that people would do like on a security audit, right? So they're trying to, can I break your app? Can I get into your app, right? Can I find a security flaw? And there are a lot of AI tools now for doing that, which is replacing a lot of the kind of grunt work for security researchers out there of just like, okay, like here's a library, find every way to try and get into it. And the AI will tirelessly just try and find ways to get into it. And performance testing. So That's one thing that I've found I got a lot of use out of really recently. So I had, we were doing some OCR stuff that wasn't performing very well. I was using Textract, and Textract was pretty good for a while, but then it started like sometimes putting lowercase letters in when it wasn't supposed to, like very recently. They changed something very recently, and all my stuff stopped working because for homeowners policy, instead of saying capital H, capital O, 00030491, it said H, little o, and then couldn't find it. And then started putting artifacts in, like putting ones in places like just out of nowhere where it never did before. So I'm like, I need to go find a new library. So I've got to go figure out what text OCR services that are out there that can process the data and give me back what I need. So I just had my AI like, okay, build me a framework to test these libraries out in these modes. And it needs to process, like I already have tests to make sure that it's working, which is how I knew it was broken. So I'm like, oh, here's the test data. Use these PDFs to parse, and here's the expected results. Go use this data, do not change the data. Yeah, you have to put that like big capitals, don't change the data, because it wants to solve the problem. And sometimes it'll solve the problem by changing the problem. Yeah, it gets kind of crazy that way. But I was able to find out, okay, who's performing best on, it was able to tell me like very quickly, so like I would say in a day, right, I was able to start from nothing, have an application that stored its history so that it could look time over time, would run a test against 100 PDFs from 8 different customers with expected output, get them parsed on 4 different OCR services, determine how accurate it was, how fast it was, and how expensive it was, and then give me a report on all of that data. In a day, like that would have taken me a week if I would have had to write the code myself, figure it out, build it. And I found out other things for performance testing, like I can performance test endpoints and just have it, just kind of build this stuff, mostly throwaway because I'm going to need something else later, so I'll just build something else. So I do it a lot for performance testing. Code review. So this is the one thing this is on my to-do list, like the top of my AI to-do list. Actually, it's second. Something else came up on top of it really recently. And the problem that I have, one of the problems with this is that the only AI tools that seem reasonable for code review right now, maybe you may know of another, but my research hasn't found anything else, which is Copilot, and Cursor has BugBot, which will basically, oh, you've made a merge request, let me go review your merge request and see if there's bugs. Our problem is that we're on GitLab. None of the tools work on GitLab, right? If you're self-hosted, none of the tools work. So it's more difficult for me to test. I've got to like go create something, like I've got it all set up, but I have to go put something up there, create a merge request, have it find stuff, right? It's not something that's that easy. And this has become kind of our linchpin, right? We're writing code fast. We're writing lots of code fast. One thing as you start writing AI code, you'll start learning is you'll start telling it, don't modify the things that I tell you not to modify. Because it will want to refactor all of your code base. And I'm like, no. I'm just changing this one thing, don't change anything else. And you have to remind it every now and then. But again, like, I wrote a feature, I hadn't done this, and I don't know if I've ever done it. I was able to write a feature, so we put in this new OCR system, and one of the customers didn't work with it. I'm like, oh, great, because the OCR reads it differently, and things are mixed up, and there's no way to do a regular expression to make it work. At least not one that I can come up with. And so I was trying to solve for this. I was like, oh, well, let's try see. It's a tabular format. It's literally in a table in a PDF. And some of these OCR things, they have the ability to read table data. So I was like, okay, let's write a new application. Go get the table stuff. Use the same tests. And test for that. So I identified that, yes, it can work with tables. So I was able to, I did the research. That was a one-day thing. And then the second day, I was able to create new services to parse as the text, or parse as a text or as a table. Set up the system to be able to, on a basically I have these rule sets set up, and so per rule set you can determine if it was table or not through the interface, which is stored in the database, which is read by the system to know am I supposed to process one or the other, and the different parsing processes. I went the wrong way. I was like, let's do this super easy. It'll just be like this hacked flag in there. And I realized that, oh, it's more work than just making it work correctly. So I went the wrong way for about 3 hours and then refactored back to the way that was actually much easier. I wasn't actually planning on doing the front end, but the AI actually went, oh, well, here's this thing where all these things are set. I'm going to go change everything so it actually understands that stuff, put it all the way to the API, and I was like, oh, let's just change the front end. Like, that's a 10-minute thing. I was able to create the front end piece and modify the JavaScript, add it to a table of listings, and be able to edit it. Write all of the unit tests. Write the unit tests again correctly, and then write, again, this is mostly for the most part, you're updating unit tests. But because of the table stuff, you had to make sure the table parsing was, because there's a really weird thing where it just spits it out like, have it spit out like Markdown, so I can just use the existing stuff for parsing in regular text. So we had to verify all that. And if you've ever had to like mock responses from something really arbitrary and large, like that is just really hard and takes a really long time. And it just, oh yeah, here's this giant 7-layer object. Here you go, have fun. And then modified the UI tests so that it would test to make sure that the UI, when you check the button, you do the checkbox and everything works out the way it's supposed to. And then AI integration tests for if I send it this thing, it comes back and it gives me the data back correctly. I did that in 8 hours. And it was perfect. Like the code looked amazing. It was like I think it was like a 40-line change in the code. At the end of the day, well, in the backend code anyway. And like I have finished things in hackathons that worked in 8 hours, but those don't have unit tests, those don't have integration tests, those don't have like full UI tests, and they're usually not really good code because you don't have time to like clean up your code. It's like, oh, that didn't work, and go back. Yeah, question.
Oh, just curious, which model did you use, or which models?
So, are you talking about for the code development, or for
the whole stretch, like Claude 3.7 to 4, or what's?
So I personally use Cursor.
Right.
It's the tool I prefer. There are other tools. I haven't had great luck with the way that I work using Copilot, because you can do Copilot and VS Code, and the big difference with Cursor is they modify it for everything, so it has access. You can give it access to everything. So I can go into the terminal and I'm running code. It gives an error. I just copy the error and say fix it, and it can read that. It does really good, and it kind of takes over that stuff. Yeah.
You can select the LLMs.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
Right. So it really depends, right? So I work well with Claude 4.5, and my company is paying for Max, right? Or Claude 4. Use Claude, whatever's the latest Claude. I can't remember. Huh? Right. But in there, I think they call it Claude 4. I think it's Claude 4. They call it Sonnet and then Max. Yeah. And so I'm using that because it has like a 1 million token context window, which is helpful. But I tend to have large code bases. So if you're not using large code bases, or if you're able to chop it down into smaller code bases, it makes it easier. It's one reason I might move to microservices, because if you can make the code smaller and just deal with one piece, because if I don't have to worry about all of the other code and making sure things work together, AI works better with smaller pieces. Or you need a big context. But my architect prefers OpenAI GPT 4.1. Like, he gets great results out of that. I get great results out of mine, right? Some of it is the type of work that you're trying to do. There's certain things that certain models do better. I like Sonnet because it will just, or Claude because it will just do it, right? Like, here, do these things, and it will be it tends to be very thoughtful. I tried using Gemini, and it creeped me out because it was so apologetic, and like, it was just really kind of creepy. Where it's like, I am so terrible. I'm not worthy of. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So I told it was wrong. He did something wrong, and everything. They all have different personalities, right? So Claude is like, oh, you're absolutely right. It's a sycophant, right? So it's like, yes, you're absolutely right. I should do this, whether I'm right or not. It always agrees with me and always does what I want it to do. I've had to stop saying this is wrong and telling it's wrong. I had to ask it, is this the right way? And then, because sometimes I'm wrong. But if you tell it it's wrong, if you tell Claude it's wrong, I'm wrong. I'm going to do whatever you told me to do, whether it's the right thing to do or not. I started using Gemini, and Gemini just kind of freaked me out. Where it's like, I'm not worthy of this. You're right to be angry with me. I'm a terrible developer. Like it was just kind of creepy. And 4.1 tends to ask me too much. It's like, I don't want to talk to you. I want you to just do this for me. Yeah.
So they're all drastically different.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, you can get the automation out of Claude or Windsurf. Cursor does not do automation. Claude does, Claude Max does. Those are all fully automated. It runs its own LLMs. And Opus is probably the best one out of that group data-wise. Sonic Max and other ones are really good, but it depends on what you're trying to do. Like 4.1 and ChatGPT is pretty solid. Gemini 2.5 is great. Rock Code comes out this summer. That one's going to be really good too. But it all depends on what problems you're trying.
Yeah,
But those two
I've been
tools.
experimenting between.
So the only two on the market that are really going full automation, Claude Code automates, Windsurf automates. Cursor will get to a certain point that tell it what to do.
Cursor has agents now to automate.
Yeah, Claude will go all the way. You can just say, and you can actually memorize, like, you can tell it just do the whole thing and go get coffee.
Right. Yeah.
One domain where I had a lot of luck with Gemini specifically has been SQL, because Gemini has the extended context window, so you can build a set of JSON definitions for your database from like the debug information and stuff, and then feed it to Gemini, and it will get the query right every time the first time.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Like, depending on what you're trying to do, so there'll be something up here comes up later, like, find what works for you, because some it's your personality, your style, how you talk to it will work better for one or the other, and then certain things do certain things well. Like it took me, I have to write, again, this OCR stuff. I have to do these crazy regular expressions, and I have one customer that I can't get past like 90% accuracy, and nothing could figure it out. Like they just start stumbling over each other. But if I went to 04 mini high, amazing. But it's terrible at everything else.
One thing I noticed in your flow, are you
Yeah.
not using reversals or Claude configurations?
So I'll get into that.
Oh, you are, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like that's usually right in the front. That's because, okay, I'll wait.
Yeah, so we're just talking about the life cycle.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anyway? All right. Security. So there are definitely tools, AI tools out there for this, for monitoring, identifying risky user behavior, identifying security flaws. These are packaged tools that have been out forever, right? So there's like Sneak and a bunch of other tools. I use them because in order for me to do audits myself, I was doing that for a while. It takes me a day to do the audit. I was able to use AI to write some code to pull all the data for me, but it still takes me hours to go review all of the changes. Where now I have an AI system. We use AWS, so I am using, what am I using? GuardDuty. And GuardDuty, I just feed it the data, and it's like, hey, this is weird. Somebody did this they don't ever do, right? So it's just finding me things, abnormal behavior, and when somebody changes something that's not normally changed. And then, again, like identifying security flaws, there's all kinds of kind of static code analysis tools out there that use AI to find problems. The other thing that we do is for, well, I'm not observability yet, so I think we'll get to that next, right? Or sorry, okay, CI/CD. So I don't know about you. I mean, there probably are some people here that are constantly either working in GitHub Actions or YAML files for GitLab, or they're really amazing at whatever their particular infrastructure as code is at. All right, I'm a software developer that has to use this stuff because I need to use it. It's the right thing to do. I'm just not very good at it. I know what it needs to do. I just, much like JavaScript for me, if I want to I know how to build React stuff. I don't remember what the functions are. I don't remember like what the parameters are. So I can't just whip stuff out, right? Like if you want me to write stuff in Python, I know like probably 80% of the standard library. There was a time in PHP where I knew 100% of the standard library because it's much smaller than the Python standard library, to be honest. But in JavaScript, like I don't do it all day, so I don't remember it. It's the same thing with me for Terraform, right? We use Terraform, and like remembering how to do it right it's not super easy for me, and figuring out what's wrong is also not super easy. So I found that using some chatbot is way better at finding the right information than me having to do a Google search and find the wrong Stack Overflow. And right, like if you have to research stuff you don't understand super well, it's very difficult to find the problem because you'll get a bunch of wrong answers. Not that AI doesn't give wrong answers, it makes stuff up sometimes, but personally for me, it is much faster for me to figure that stuff out. As well as it's like, oh, hey, I need to add this new Amazon service available here for this particular environment, add it to my Terraform, and just Terraform, and it's good, and it works. The same thing with code, right? The more complicated it is, the harder it is for AI to get it right. Right? I don't do anything super complicated in Terraform. Right? It's like, oh yes, I need this firewall, I need this VPC, I've got this thing here, I need this other thing added to it. Not that big a deal. But it's super helpful for me because, again, it's not something I do every day. So the AI is better at getting it right than I am. And it's certainly faster. And I can do it right through my IDE. Yeah, so anomalous behavior, application behavior, and performance issues. So I already have, as part of my, I think every system out there, whether it's New Relic, Datadog, or more expensive ones I don't pay much attention to. They all have some sort of AI tool that will go like, hey, this is weird. This doesn't normally happen, it's happening now. And it creates something for me to go verify, or on the performance side, it will monitor real-time performance and go, this is out of norm. Based on the data for the last week, this is now problematic, and will give me an alert, letting me know that like, oh, you've got a resource problem, did you just release something? I don't actually let it know what my release is. If I did that, it would actually tell me this release created a problem, but I don't really use it that much. And then maintenance. Finding code inefficiencies. So it can be really good at that, although you have to be able to talk to it in a way where you understand what code efficiency is. I have not had great success in just like having it find the inefficiencies in the code. It'll find like, it'll do some like O notation stuff, where big O stuff, where it tries to find this, but in most of my applications, big O doesn't have a whole lot of, doesn't create a whole lot of problems. It's usually like, oh, you should do this in parallel versus not doing it in parallel. It's not great at figuring that out. Like I was telling, like, oh, here's these two functions that may be called. So find out they should be called, then call them both in parallel. And it wrote this horrendous script to do that. Like it just created this crazy code of like, oh, I'm going to maybe add them in and then gather them and then figure out which one I added so I can gather it right properly. And I was like, no, just make a function to return nothing back and then use that one instead, and then that'll be the correct response every time. Like that was, an extra 2 lines of code where the other one was like 30 lines of code to like set it up right and then figure it out right at the bottom. And so there's some times where it's not great at efficiency stuff. Tackling technical debts. If you already have the test, having it like, oh, I want to refactor this so it's more readable. I want to refactor it towards, be more towards this pattern. If you've got the test there where you can refactor your code, whether that's you have the unit tests or you have the integration tests to make sure you don't break anything and it still works the same way. And you remind the AI, stop changing the test. It should work the same way when you're done. It can just mow through that stuff, in my experience. Because again, that's usually the last thing I do. It writes this horrible code. I'm just like, go fix this so it's not terrible. And it will go fix it so it's not terrible. And it will keep running the test. And be like, oh, I broke something. Let me go fix that. Yeah.
Do you commit the terrible code before?
No.
I was going to be like,
I mean, you can commit the terrible code if it like, So there are some times I can always revert back because my IDEs have a way to roll back to a point in time, because sometimes it will do something so terrible that it can't recover from it, and you've got to go back and like the IDEs that use the models have the way to be like, go back to here when I asked it and revert back to right before I asked it to do that because it did some terrible stuff. So I do that pretty regularly. But if you're using something like if you're using other tools that don't have that ability, you might want to commit, right, so that you have somewhere to go back to.
Yeah, Cursor might be better than VS Code with Copilot at doing change tracking with the agents. But I just end up in circles sometimes where it gives me a horrible thing, then I eventually work my way back to doing it myself.
Yeah, like there are a lot of times where I'm just like, this is all terrible, and you're not, like, because sometimes it'll get lost in the weeds. It just does, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to fix this, and now it's completely broken the application. Oh, I'm going to change this thing. No, that wasn't broken. Stop fixing that. Like, that was how it was supposed to work. And then, like, it just gets completely off course. I just have to be like, okay, restore back to when I ask this question. I'm going to ask it in a way where it's not going to do something stupid because I know what it did wrong. I can do this, but don't do that, right? There's some times where I don't give it the context that's in my head. And again, like, well, we'll talk about like why I do what I do in a minute. Bug triage, I have an amazing story for bug triage. I had a customer success person's like, puts in a ticket, it's like, okay, customer's doing this, they're supposed to get this, here they get nothing. I'm like, okay, and this modal won't ever go away. Cool. So I brought up my my IDE, put the picture in, said, here's what the customer's getting, what's wrong? And it found the bug, right? It found, like, we have this crazy state system. So we're an AI application. So we start processing AI as soon as possible. So that by the time you get to the end, it's actually done, and you think it's magical. Because, like, you're taking 30 seconds to, like, finish processing what you're doing, and when you get to the end, the AI is complete. And you're like, this is amazing. AI should normally take so long. And that was part of the user experience we had to build a year ago. And because of that, it has this crazy state system to know what it's supposed to do, where it's supposed to be, based on what's completed. And it had this one thing where it wasn't resetting the state when it had an error. So you hit the error, you'd say, fine, dismiss the modal. Instead of going back where we're supposed to, well, based on the state, I'm supposed to show this modal. So you dismiss it, it would show it, dismiss it, and show it. But there's, thousands of lines of JavaScript code that I don't spend a lot of time in. And it found the error. It didn't do a great job of fixing it, but it found the error, which saved me a lot of hours. And then it tried to fix it the wrong way, which I was like, nope, 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 nope. It tried to find a novel way to fix it, which I was like, no, we do this in other places. Go look at the other code and find out how it does it, and then you do that. And then it just replicated what the other pieces do when you get a modal when the state's bad. Basically, it's like, oh, this file doesn't have what it needs to have, which is the thing it shows you. I need a different file. And it's supposed to change the state so that it realizes, oh, I don't have this file anymore. I go back to the place where you put the file in. And it was just doing kind of all kinds of crazy nonsense. So I was like, no, just follow what it does. And it fixed it. But I was kind of just testing it to see what would happen. And I literally just like, screenshot, user complaint. And it's like, yep, here it is. Which was pretty amazing. And I have found that on AI, having it look at what you have and either summarize it or find something in it is way better than that than creating something from scratch. Right? They're always better at, like, you can actually tell it to do something and then ask it what it, if it did it right, and it will find the places where it did it wrong. So it's not that it doesn't know how to do it, it's just not as, generative AI is not as good as at generating things than determining what's wrong with the things that are there. So adoption playbook. So this is like some of the stuff that, especially for people who haven't done this before, start small, right? You don't want to start like, oh, I'm going to go do this giant project, unless you've got a lot of time. Start small with a small amount of code. Something super easy for, like, if it's all in one file, super easy for the AI to understand. It's not going to get lost. Because the AI will work fine, but if you've never done it before, you don't know how to tell it what to do. You don't know how to set rules up, right? There's going to be some work that has to go there. But so my suggestion is to start small. That was my problem at first. I was trying to do big things because oh, I should be able to do this. I should be able to make an app in vibe code. I didn't know how to vibe code yet. And so it was just terrible. And I was like, oh, this is terrible. This stuff doesn't work. And I had to have my developers show me how to use it right. And like say, just try this small thing, like start making up rules, do that kind of stuff. And I think it's a lot like anything else you've ever done, right? On my side, like when I first learned object-oriented programming, right, going from scripting, or I first learned domain-driven design or behavior-driven development, right? It was this new concept that I did poorly, and my mentors mocked me for just how terrible my objects were, or how terrible my separation of concern, right? Nobody's mocking me about this, but it's still the same frustration if it's not working because I'm not doing it well. And it just takes time, and you've got to get better at it, and you should go do some research on your own and find out like what's the right thing to do, because it's evolving, and there's a decent amount of information out there. But what I've found is that if you take the stuff, so depending on your IDE, right, it will have, or your plugin for your IDE, it will have instructions on what works best for it, and then look at your model, because your model will also have instructions that work best for it. Some of them are like, oh, if you want me to know hierarchical stuff, put it in XML, right? Some of them work fine with Markdown, right? So you need to understand how to talk to them in a way that works best for them for things that are complicated. Find your mode in your model, right? So that was the whole thing we were talking about before. Like, depending on what you're doing, depending on your level of knowledge, and depending on your style, a different tool or a different model may fit you better. I've tried, in my process, like I've been using JetBrains products forever. I love the interface. Debugging is a dream. There's a lot of stuff. I know all the key combinations. But to use Cursor, I had to move to VS Code, and I am not a fan. A lot of that is because I never used it before. I had the same problem when I moved from Eclipse to JetBrains, right? It's like I know all the stuff in Eclipse, all the weird crap you had to do in Eclipse to get it to work properly, but it was a new thing that was weird to me. Or when I moved from Linux to a Mac, right? It's like, I don't know how to do this. I have the same problem in VS Code. And there are actually things I can't do in VS Code, which make me angry. So depending on how you develop, and if you're doing this at work, what your work will allow, right? Some companies will allow one but not the other, right? A lot of companies are fine with Copilot because it's Microsoft, and you can get your Microsoft Enterprise Copilot, and it lives within your data structure, and it lives within, right? If you're in a big company, they'll care about that, and they may not give you an option for anything else. If you're in a smaller company, they may just be like, I don't care as long as you work faster, right? But again, it's what works for you. Don't get frustrated, get help. Right? When I first started doing this, I was just like, this is terrible. Just kind of like stopped. And I'd come back every now and then and be like, because again, all my developers are using it, but I can't make it work. And a lot of times I don't have time to figure this out. I've got work to do. But all it really took is like, I don't know, a half an hour of just sitting down with my devs, like, show me what I'm doing wrong. And they showed me what I was doing wrong. I was like, oh, this is amazing. This is the greatest thing ever. So like, there are a bunch of us here that are using this type of stuff, and we have a Discord channel, right? Help each other. There are like meetups and peer groups and whatever your gig is for getting help, right? Get help. Like there's some stuff where it's just not easy to figure out how to do it right. And I mean, you can take all the time and figure it out trial and error yourself, or just do what I like to do, which is learn from others who are more adventurous than I am. Sometimes I'm the adventurous one, sometimes I just follow the adventurers. And some lessons from the trenches, right? So this is some of the stuff we're talking about too. Treat AI like a noob. AI is like, to me, like my experience, that if you've got a really smart, somewhat educated junior developer, they're smart enough to do it right when you tell them what to do, but if you don't tell them, they're going to do dumb shit, right? Because they just don't know any better. This seems like a good idea. No, that's a terrible idea. They're like, oh, I need you to do this when this error happens. Oh, I'll look for the text in the error message. No, handle the exception type, right? As a senior software developer, you know that looking at text and error messages is a really bad idea. As a junior, you don't, right? You're like, I can identify this. No. Find out where it happens, throw a new error, raise a new exception, right? Handle it that way. So it just does stuff like that. It also, well, that'll come up next. I don't want to get in front of my slides. But I've had really good experiences with just treating it like it's a junior developer that we're doing pair programming and they're typing, right? So, hey, do this thing, and it'll start doing things like, whoa, stop doing that. You're going the wrong way, right? I haven't gotten to the point where I feel comfortable just letting it go and do a bunch of stuff unless we're most of the way there. Because it just goes and does really dumb stuff sometimes. And then we're having to unwind all that really dumb stuff. Trust but verify. Again, just like a junior programmer, AI will do some terrible, terrible stuff, and it really wants to please you. It wants to complete the task, even if it has to change the parameters for the task to be successful. So I don't know how many of you have ever been in a senior position working with juniors, and you tell like, hey, do this task. Here's the acceptance criteria, right? So I'm working for the OCR stuff, right? It needs to be 100% accurate for all carriers. When you read all the files, it needs to parse every one of those files and get every one of the things out of it that's supposed to get 100%. And the guy's like, cool, I'm done. R1 is 100%. And if you don't know what R1 means I got the same number of answers every time. They're not the answers you want, but they're the right number of answers. Because it was having a hard time solving, it's just like, oh, it just changed. Oh, I'm done, I got it, right? And you're like, no, you didn't do what I asked you to do, which I've had to do to a lot of junior developers. No, here are the requirements. That's great, you got it this far. Now take it to 100%. And then it would like, you need to solve it this way. And we'd be like, oh, okay, great. And then it would like add in extra code that you can't add, right? Because I just need the service to work exactly the way it's working. It would add in pre-processors and post-processors to make it work. I'm like, nope, can't do that. We have to use the existing system. And then when I was doing this originally, I was like, I wonder if AI can do this just from AI vision stuff instead of using OCR. That's the dream of not having to make a regex for every single customer that comes online. Because sometimes it takes me a day because the regex is so complicated and they have like 50 different types of that form and there are exceptions and all that type of stuff. And so what it did there is that like it found one, so we have our demo carrier that we use for demoing, and it only has one test. So it was able to get that to 100% because it gave the answer to the AI, right? It just changed the prompt so that the AI would be like, oh, I want you to parse this. Here's an example, and it had the entire result it was supposed to spit back. So it will cheat, right? It will do whatever it needs to do, and again, even violate the rules that you set because it's like, well, you want me to finish this, but I can't finish it this way. Sometimes what you can do in the rules is tell it, if you're unable to, if you're having a difficult time resolving this, then ask for assistance, and sometimes that works. It's actually come down to the point where I was working on it for a bit and I've kind of abandoned it. But in order to write the code, like we're talking about, to just go and write the application, if you ask it, if it writes the code, you say, does this code follow all of the rules? And it's like, no, it doesn't follow this, that, and the other. I'll go fix that, right? And then it's like it's this iterative process. And I want it to just do that automatically, but I can't trust it to do it itself. So what I've been working on, it's kind of on pause right now, is I need to have an AI that drives the AI, right? That says, here, I want you to write this code to do these things, here's the rules, and then let me know when you're done, and then I'll verify. And then you have the code verify it. Nope, this isn't right, that's not right, go fix this. I'm having the same thing with something writing a regular expression. I found one model that's really good at writing regular expressions, but it can't figure out what's wrong with the regular expression. So I need another model to go look at the regular expression and find out what's wrong and tell the one that's really good at writing regular expressions what it needs to fix. Which is also going to be helpful because the context size of one is really small and the other is really big. But again, trust but verify, because it will do dumb stuff. It'll be like, yes, we're all done, it's all good, I've finished the task, and it has not finished the task. Or it finished the task, and all the results come out perfect, but it'll change unit tests because it broke it wrote code that broke the unit test, and instead of fixing its code, it'll go fix the unit test. There's something wrong with this unit test. No, this is a unit test that existed, not part of the code. Don't change it. Which again, I've had to tell junior developers as well. Have a documented set of requirements. I use AI usually to build the requirements, so it's not a huge process, but you need functional and non-functional requirements so that the AI knows what its boundaries are. So you have to set boundaries. Much like, right, a new developer who doesn't understand the application, who doesn't understand the history of the application and why you did this and why you did that, right? You have certain rules when you build or modify your application. It needs to understand those rules. And I would suggest that becomes part of the code. So we have rule sets that are just part of the code. And we actually have split them out for, here are the overall things that are always true, right? This is a single set of truth. And then we have other files that are for specific types of features. Because if you give it too much information, it thinks that some may be in conflict with the others, and it doesn't know what to do, and it just picks one. So we'll do that, but we'll just have adding in the context pieces. Keep the rules independent from the tools. So if someone's asking about cursor rules, or they're like everybody has something that you put in there. Not everybody uses the same tools. So what we have is it seems to work fine for everything we've had. Your mileage may vary, but we have a markdown file that has all of the rules, and then we have this really crazy like always use readme.md when making decisions, right? And then like 50 different ways, well, it's not 50, it's like 10 different ways of saying, before you do anything, verify that these are within the rules set in the readme.md, right? And just like telling it in the cursor rules or in the, I can't remember what the JetBrains one is, like everybody has a file that you set that it always adds to its context. And if you tell in that rule, that rules file to always add something else to the context, that usually works. So we definitely have rules, but they're not necessarily cursor rules. The cursor rules are just telling cursor always use this as part of your context. And that works pretty good. Yeah.
So if you do use the rules, one of your techniques with the rules, especially in Colin, is like you can tell them to show the rules. So I'll expand a little bit what you're saying, right? So like there's a great benefit to actually read the docs on the LM, but watch you checking it, at least the base, because then all your code will potentially be constructed. So I'm in a massive project, and it manages to keep all the stylistic changes against the limiters for all the tech inside the languages out there having head-to-head problem. I can say we actually put author name, put an author name in it, and say follow this author's context. In my company love that book, and it'll follow exactly this principle method without just on the base prompt. So if you do the rules right in any of those LMs or the IE, you save on all your prompt you have to do. You protect the prompt just like literally 3 words, and it'll chop it like that. That's a huge
Yeah.
way to the rules.
Yeah, one thing that I did find though is that telling it to follow the linters doesn't always do that. That's why I was saying like why I'm looking. I need something to control the code writer, because when it's supposed to, because sometimes it does it when I don't want it to. Like it's constantly running lint checks. Like just get to the end and then run the lint check before. Like as you're asking me questions, don't run the lint check and then ask me a question.
Some of it, like especially the older LMs, is what
Yeah.
they'll hallucinate more, right? So you're referring to as hallucination, not
Right.
the term. Like anything below the fours will do that. They hallucinate
Right.
ridiculously.
Oh, I'm using like state-of-the-art models, and it's still like, it'll just give me broken code. It won't even test it. Like, even though it's told, test the code, make sure it passes all of the linters, and it's got the list of the linters. Like it has problems. Again, like you can just be like, did you check this against the linters? Did you follow all of the instructions? And it'll be like, no, I didn't follow this, right? So like you can ask it, but I'm tired of asking it. And what I can't do is I can't tell it, here's this thing, go build it, and be confident that it will build it in the way that I want it to build it, because it's not going to follow the rules. It follows them sometimes, doesn't follow them other times, and as I think the longer it goes and the longer its own little chat thing gets, stuff gets pushed out of the context where it's forgetting things. But like I said, it gets easier. It's a new system that you're learning, and even if you don't get better, the AI does. So like 6 months ago, writing code with AI was awful. You could get it to do certain things. It was kind of crazy at points, right? If you tried to use ChatGPT to write code a year ago, it would write ghastly, awful things. And today I can have it write applications and feel comfortable with it. In a year, who knows what it'll be like, right? You're going to get new models in the next 3 or 4 months. And so the likelihood is that it will be astronomically better in 3 or 4 months. So even if you don't get better, the AI will, the tools are. I think one of the advantages that I've seen in Cursor, and again, I don't use the other tools, right, is that the tools are getting better. They're realizing that like, as you're reading stuff, you're typing things that you want it to do, but you don't want it to stop what it's doing. This is what it's supposed to do next. And so it creates a queue of things you want it to do after it gets done with what it's doing. It's like, oh, you've done this, well, clean up that a little bit and do this thing over here, and I forgot to tell you to do this. And so the tool has made it easier because before it would stop in the middle of what it was doing and then take my context and then redo it all over again. And I didn't really want it to do that. I just wanted to kind of do it next and I hit enter too early. So it all gets easier. And I don't think we have time for that. This always runs longer than I think. So key takeaways in Q&A, like we could do this. I have to find out if we actually have time. To just quick vibe code an app. AI in dev is evolutionary, right? Like I've been using AI for ML, right? Like if you're ever wondering if you use a JetBrains product on a slightly older computer, why after a little bit your computer isn't operating anymore, it's because it's going through and reading all of your code and indexing it so it can add it to its model so it can autocomplete. That stuff's been going on forever. And I absolutely have used it from the very beginning because I've gotten better at typing, but I am really terrible at it. Like I've never actually learned how to properly type. I think like in the last 3 or 4 years I've gotten where I don't have to look at the keyboard. So like I was bad enough as a typer before where like I had to hunt and peck and autocomplete was for it. There's tools across the entire lifestyle. Embrace the curator mindset, right? Become the senior developer, right, or the architect that's determining what needs to be built, and like you allow others to build it, allow the AI to build it, right? It's gonna need to be corrected just like everybody else. Instead of a code review, you've got this little thing where it tells you what it changed. And you're like, right? But it's going to get decent. You're going to get better at telling it what to do, so it does what you want it to do more. Code that it got way better at picking the right stuff. I think everybody's pretty toast. I know I am. All right, well, thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. A relaxing forest.
Yeah, thank you again, Adam, for coming out. Also want to thank you all for coming out and enjoying the talk with us. Also, make sure to check out Corporate Co-working. If anyone here or who sees the video is interested in a co-working space, come check them out. They are great in hosting us. Also, we have 2 JetBrains licenses that we can hand out if anyone's interested. If we have more than 2 people who are interested, come up to me and we will run a random number generator or something. And also, if anyone's interested, please join the Discord. Let us know if you have any talk ideas. And also, if you have any talk ideas that you want to present, hit us up or come talk to us afterward.